Hello, and welcome back to Unpopular Opinion. Today's episode, Insomniac Spider-Man isn't a masterpiece. Much like 2023, 2018 was an awesome year for video games. PlayStation whipped out its big juicy dong and said, "Behold my greatness." And we, the gamers, all did what we do best and argued on the internet about which games were Game of the Year. At the time, the big dogs were Red Dead Redemption 2 and God of War, with Spider-Man, Monster Hunter, and Smash Bros. Being much less part of that conversation. And as a Spider-Man fan, I was really upset it wasn't considered a true contender. I came to realize that just because you have a good game with some good graphics and fun gameplay, that doesn't make you a masterpiece or Game of the Year material. Frankly, I think I was just so excited to play a Spider-Man game in 1080p. The last Spider-Man game I was really into was Edge of Time, and that was in 2011. So yeah, this was a big upgrade, technically speaking. But now that there's a new Spider-Man game around the corner, I want to reflect on the original and see how the new one improves.
So do I.
I think the idea of these masterpieces is that it goes above and beyond what is expected. It has to continually amplify itself with its gameplay, story, and design. I think this is something that's extraordinarily hard to accomplish alone, and if your video game has already been made many times before, it's even harder to stand out. I don't think Call of Duty has ever been considered Game of the Year because we have one every year. It's harder to appreciate. Same goes for Assassin's Creed. Not only do you have to outdo yourself, but any games that are similar to yours. I find it interesting that more people compare Spider-Man to the Arkham games and not to the dozens of Spider-Man games that we've had before. But I think people are very fond of those games because they are really the only Batman games out there. They were considered masterpieces because of how they innovated stealth and combat, and they were the first to do it well. In other words, they were the first to make you feel like Batman. And at no point do those games really falter at that statement. Can we say the same thing about Spider-Man? Does Spider-Man actually surprise you at every turn? If you ever played a Spider-Man game before, you'd probably say, not really. This game has actually rarely treaded new territory, but we are going to get into it. But before we do that, subscribe or I will kill this real boy. Help me, please. A lot of you are not subscribed, and I'm going to need you to do that, or else this real child's going to get it. Please, I'm going to give you 3, 2, 1. Hey, thank you for subscribing.
Don't negotiate with terrorists.
Spider-Man is the most adapted superhero in the video game format. Or at least I hope he is before someone Googles the actual answer. But more importantly, as of now, it is the most successful superhero video game ever made. However, I don't think people realize how many Spider-Man games there actually already are. Each of these Spider-Man games took an approach on the old webhead, and some have even done things better than the 2018 title. Insomniac Spider-Man is an amazing game, and clearly took a lot of notes from games before. However, after beating the game 5 times, getting all the trophies, and playing all the DLC, I must say, the game lacks any true depth. I know this game inside and out, and while it was a cool experience, I think it doesn't lend itself to the masterpiece category. There are truly too many good Spider-Man games that you likely haven't played, so before you crown this game as the best Spider-Man game, please
Consider the following.
Spider-Man games can vary in all shapes and sizes. The core aspects of any modern Spider-Man game can be broken down into a couple of areas: combat, exploration, traversal, and narrative. Most people have seen this combat style in video games. Batman, Assassin's Creed, Shadow War all have the same system. Spider-Man offers some extra speed and agility to these encounters. Constant striking with a variation of gadgets adds some nice variety. The enemies are all easily beatable and don't offer too much of a challenge. It doesn't sound too sexy, but the combination of mechanics and combos allow for some pretty spectacular moments while being easy to pick up. These encounters also include some optional stealth segments that can be challenging if you care about the optional requirements.
That was luck.
The boss fights are the most compelling segments, but are often cut short due to their difficulty, or lack thereof.
Wait, he's down? He's down? He's down?
Keep in mind, I've beaten the game on the hardest difficulty many times. The beauty is in the design of these boss fights that match Spider-Man's abilities. It's neat to see Scorpion move and fight on your level, or even how Electro and Vulture can bring you to their level. I think they are really interesting concepts, but never really had me on my toes. The narrative behind the fight was always more interesting than the fight itself. But the real crime is the Taskmaster fight. It's the illusion of beauty, something that has a magic that is easily stripped away by any deeper look. In fact, it was one of my favorite boss battles of all time, but now I can't help but see the flaws. Taskmaster is such a unique villain in many ways. He is the only villain that actually comes to you. Once activated, he will bola and trap you wherever you are in the city and challenge you to a one-on-one fight. Keep in mind at this time, you don't even know who the villain is or his capabilities. Trapping people as Spider-Man is expected, but getting trapped as Spider-Man is a completely different thing entirely.
Let's
Even if you beat the entire game, there's no other character that plays quite like him. He has really interesting mechanics. He can track you from roof to roof on 90% of buildings. If you decide to run, he will disappear, ensnare you, and then start beating your ass. He uses the same finishers you've been using on goons the entire game. He can deflect most of your gadgets and block most of your physical attacks. Most importantly, he learns from your fight, meaning if you happen to break his guard and land some hits, the next time you try that, it won't work. The first time I fought him, I found him exhilarating and challenging. The mechanic alone of him chasing me and vice versa was amazing. But then, my fiance told me that she beat him in 10 seconds.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine.
You'll notice it again when I kick your face. Keep stealing my moves and I'll sue you for copyright infringement. Remember this.
Which makes me feel like my fight was more theatrical and less skill-based, which is disappointing because his whole mechanic is that he copies and adapts to the fight, and it's 90% effective. Still by far the best fight in the game. But if you can cheese the battle with gadgets that I don't even believe Spider-Man should be carrying, well, damn! So I decided to test this battle and see if my fiance was just lucky, or if it was a glitch, or anything. But nope, it's not a glitch. There are so many ways to beat this guy, really, it's just silly. Basically, any of the damage multipliers or stunning abilities will do the trick. The one that seemed the easiest for me was Unrelenting Fury. It makes it so that your enemies can't block, which is Taskmaster's whole moveset. He blocks.
How are you blocking so much?
Taskmaster goes from a master assassin to hand-to-hand combat and turns into Spider-Man's personal fuck toy.
Bring me that ass.
Which is kind of a shame, because the other bosses, like I said, weren't exactly difficult. While the boss fights can make you use most of your abilities, only one game has gotten the Spider-Man combat down to a T, and that'd be Spider-Man Web of Shadows. While it's more of a brawler game, it does let you fight on all three territories that Spider-Man comes across. Whether it's on a wall, in the air, or on the ground, Spider-Man can fight efficiently and quickly fight multiple enemies or a single villain in a fun cinematic gameplay. The wall fighting and crawling often gets overlooked. Something I'm not really sure why, because it's one of the few things Spider-Man can do that most other heroes can't do. Stick to walls. Web of Shadows game made me feel like a menace. From kicking dudes across the city or catching them in midair, Spider-Man felt capable, strong, and quick. And we won't even get into how the black suit made him feel like a lethal nightmare.
Get some help.
I think that the 2018 Spider-Man game put in a basic counter and takedown system that many other games have already implemented, but was just a little too scared to put in their own flavor. I have no doubt the sequel will have a better combat system, hopefully more in line with the character. I don't want this to be confused with the web swinging or traversal. Think more about the interactivity of the world and the crimes that are being committed in it. This game has you pull an Assassin's Creed where markers will come up and spell it all out for you once you get to the tower. But that is a Batman thing, not a Spider-Man thing. Batman pulls up, does detective mode, and solves the case. Spider-Man is a siren chaser. He sees, senses, or hears danger and swings in that direction. He chases danger and action is his reward. He is supposed to arrive just in time. I think the Spider-Man games would lend themselves better to a Red Dead-styled open world, where you are on an objective, danger appears, and you can either ignore or engage. That danger leads you down side missions and explores the map in a more organic way. The backpacks are a cool way to get you to places like under bridges to outskirts and even some cool landmarks, but that's about it. A beautiful New York with no mystery because everything is on the surface. Criminal hideouts, if we're calling it that, appear on your map because of course they do. And they just have their goons sit on the rooftops waiting to be greeted and yeeted by yours truly. How cool would it be if you saw a kid lose a balloon, you grab it, bring it back to him, then you notice a couple of gangsters under a bridge. You follow them to an underground hideout where you discover there's an entire gun operation and you find out who the big man is behind the operation. Now you have a new boss and new crimes in an area that you discovered organically. Whoa. Or we can just go to the blue dot on the map because it, you're Batman anyway. I'm just saying this because the game currently doesn't cater to Spider-Man's style. For example, hanging out with civilians and giving high fives is an awesome, very in-character touch. There's no reason to do it, it doesn't benefit you in any way, but it's kinda cool. It's almost that masterpiece level shit. But there's something even cooler in the game. Something I only saw once, and many of you may have never experienced this awesome feature. Kingpin and Mr. Negative actually send assassins disguised after you in this game. It took me by surprise and I was stoked when I saw it. But do you know why so few people have actually seen this event? It's because the assassins blend in with civilians on the ground. The ground. The place where Spider-Man never is. These assassins are posing and trying to find Spider-Man when he's hundreds of feet in the air, going hundreds of miles per hour throughout Manhattan. It's such a cool feature that rarely anyone noticed because it isn't tailored to this Spider-Man game. Maybe having a reason to high-five the civilians would bring us to the ground, or having an event/crime or mission lure us to these civilians on the ground level. Half of Spider-Man 2, the game, is having a person setting us up to get jumped by a bunch of goons. However, if you beat the game, you won't ever have these guys come after you. New York just becomes a bunch of buildings once this game is done and dusted, and there's no reason to be in Queens or Bronx or Soho or Chinatown or anywhere else. All the different regions should have different experiences, crimes, activities, gangs, and villains, but they don't. Which is another problem with the game once you beat it, is that there isn't a whole lot to do, which is a weird thing to limit your own game, especially since it's already pretty short. There are 16 side missions in total, 55 backpacks, 17 research missions, and apparently to 100% everything is less than 35 hours, which is not that much, but more importantly, I think it's longer than it took me to do it. Guess how many crimes there are in this game? You can pause, I want you to guess. Have you guessed? 44. There are 44 crimes in this game, and you need to do 200 crimes. 5 gangs, 8 districts, each 5 times. So tell me why they all feel the same. Or better yet, I'll tell you. Because they are all the same. The situation isn't different. The setting is different. What I mean by this is demons robbing a man on a roof is the exact same thing as demons holding a bus hostage. The only difference is the demons are on rooftops or a bus. The hostages on the bus are never in any danger, and the person getting mugged is chilling. I actually don't know if you can fail these crimes. I think either you die or you can ignore the crime. Other than that, just web blossom and call it a day. The other thing is, even if these settings aren't different, they go away after you accomplish the 5 out of 5 in that district. And because these crimes are tied to the gangs, you can actually see the same crime 5 times and not actually see all the unique crimes. Unique being a generous word again, because most of it is just different types of criminals in different areas of the map. There are a few cool crimes that you will see only within a district a set amount of times. Bomb threats, breaking in entries, and some less interesting hostage situations. But, like I said, once you complete the 5 out of 5 in every district, you are stuck doing the same car chase, same bagel robbery, and a mugging that ranges from 3 to 18 people. Side note, how many assholes does it take to mug one person? Let's do the math. If there are 18 people robbing a single person, that woman needs to be carrying at least $5,000 for everyone to be making less than $300. Is that even worth it? I don't think so. I hear New York's quite expensive. I was really disappointed when I realized the crime pool went down after completing the 5 out of 5 in the district. It's really a shame because a lot of the side missions and activities have interesting mechanics that could be replicated fairly easy. I'm not a developer. I'm sure there's a reason they do it. Please don't shoot me. I'm just a dumb YouTuber talking about my ideas. But here are some of those ideas. Webbing up damaged buildings and saving people from fires, assassins sniping you, or avoiding traps designed to catch Spider-Man, or chasing down an escaped supervillain from the prison? A lot of these things could be cool to see. Many of these aspects are in the game in one way or another. They just aren't seen more than once. Let me show you some Spider-Man video games that have some sick-ass crimes. Fighting mechs and robots, catching people from falling buildings, and saving people from sinking boats. There may even be some wackier ones in the old Spider-Man games. I don't even think I've seen them all. And I only say that because of something I saw only one time, but in Spider-Man 2, some criminals were robbing a bakery. Nothing I hadn't seen before, and I was ready for it. But instead of using a getaway car, they used a helicopter. My 8-year-old mind was blown as I began a high-speed chase with a helicopter. Cool feature in that game, you could actually just web onto the helicopter and hold on for dear life, as long as you don't hit a building. Source? Trust me, bro, because I don't have any of the footage. Ultimate Spider-Man was a game that is often overlooked, despite being one of the best Spider-Man games there is.
We turned it sideways. That's a kill shot.
Oh, so awesome. What have I done?
Something I really liked about that game's crime system is how it dealt with minor villains. Not the campaign, not a heavy goon, but a single identifiable character that is no threat to Spider-Man. There were these small-time villains like Shocker and Boomerang that would really spice up the crime cycle. They weren't anything special, but it was really cool to see them from time to time. You'd web them up, make a joke, and leave, and it was always an enjoyable event.
So long, Bowser!
So while I was recording some footage for this video, I actually had an event I had never seen before. A citizen came up to me and pointed out a research station. I was so excited. It got me thinking that maybe there's some more stuff on the ground that just I hadn't experienced, because this game isn't tailored for that. But no, it just turns out this isn't a very well thought out mechanic, because if you get all the research towers early on, you'll never see this guy. I kind of wish that our exploration is what kind of uncovered the map instead of the stupid cell towers, because I feel like that would have been a really neat feature to have. Exploration should be freeform and self-guided. You don't have to spell everything out. Curiosity should be rewarded through exploration. Spider-Man should stumble into situations, not detective mode everything. And Spider-Man doesn't have to beat up 30 dudes for it to be a good time or a good crime. Using webs to fix structures or save people can also be their own reward. All around, people love swinging around in the game. Give them something to swing for. Also, not having a day and night cycle is kind of whack. Spider-Man 2 had that shit 20 years ago. Get your shit together, Insomniac. Honestly, this game nails it. 10 out of 10. I have no doubt that the sequel will add even more variety to the already incredible web swinging. It's hard to criticize this part of the game because they already did such a good job at it. The animations are beautiful, the control and speed make it easy to learn and fun to master. It's probably the best part of the game. I find that most people play this game for the web swinging, and honestly, I respect that. They understood the assignment over there at Insomniac, and they learned from the past Spider-Man games of what made those feel good, then they decided to make it even better. However, there is more than just web swinging. Wall crawling and level design could be improved a tad for the Traversal. I wish I remember the name, but there was this one famous comic artist that said, "It's a waste to draw Spider-Man standing normally because he can do so many amazing things, and you should showcase that with your work." Roughly, that's what he said. But using the gameplay should be about amplifying the character in the game. Using Deadeye to slow down a duelist in Red Dead Redemption, or using Rage Mode in God of War amplify those characters. But climbing is almost always useless in Spider-Man games. Aside from the stealth missions in Insomniac, I'll give them some points there. But this isn't really just an Insomniac issue. I have no idea why so many Spider-Man developers have decided to make their Spider-Mans crawling at a turtle pace. It drives me absolutely bonkers. The only game that made climbing fast and interesting was Spider-Man 2 the game. They had two modes, slow crawl
An extreme raging crawl.
You ever try to kill a spider on a wall and they just decide to fuck off and disappear? That's fast. That's how fast you should be in this game. It really worked well too in Spider-Man 2 because it allowed you to use that feature for situations where you needed to scram and have control where you were going. Map design, which ranged from outdoor cities and indoor labs, also benefited from those two crawl modes. Aside from gang hideouts and a few story exceptions, there aren't a whole lot of interiors in the 2018 game. In terms of map design, New York generally always feels the same to me, but I do appreciate it when landmarks and interiors are given a little bit more love. For example, being able to go inside Peter Parker's apartment, or buildings inside missions, or the Statue of Liberty, have all been really cool. But this game's budget really starts to show when we are on the inside. There's nothing to do and you just play as a depowered Peter. I don't understand it. The sewers in the DLC were very interesting and I hope we see an entire network of tunnels in the sequel. Expanding the map is definitely a good move that they are making, but the web wings have me a little bit worried. If you can fly at Iron Man level speeds, I don't see the whole need or desire to swing, which is the best part of the game. It's kind of like the horses in Tears of the Kingdom. They're basically starving Neopets because everyone built the damn hover bike. Even with my criticisms, if the rest of the game was as polished as the web swinging, it would be a masterpiece. This is also a part where the game flourished. The story of this game is amazing and highlights some of the best aspects of what it means to be Spider-Man, so much so that the Marvel Cinematic Universe has copied it in a couple of ways. It literally blew my mind on how engaged I became with not only this Peter Parker, but every supporting character, including Harry, who isn't even in this game. That kind of writing and storytelling instantly let me know that this was a game made by fans. Watch any interview with Brian Inthahar and you will know that he is coming from a fan's perspective. I have also reread many Spider-Man comics from previous iterations and see the inspiration they took. This game lives and breathes the best parts of Peter, Spider-Man, and the Marvel Universe. Except when they change his face. I know, stupid, and we've already talked about it, but I'm praying on Ganesh and Odin and Osiris they fix that shit. I called this segment narrative because we were talking about masterpieces. The narrative of the gameplay has to be all-encompassing. Funny word a lot of gamers like to use is ludonarrative dissonance. Basically, in the layman, if the guy does cool things in cutscenes, he should also do the cool things in gameplay. For example, in Halo, Master Chief is a badass, but in gameplay he's getting his ass kicked pretty much 24/7. But Doom Guy is kick-ass in both cutscenes and gameplay. It's really about the cohesion of the gameplay and the story. So how does this game do? Well, a really nice aspect is when you launch a guy off a building, he doesn't just fall to his death. There's actually a spider gadget that webs them to the nearest wall, keeping that friendly neighborhood Spider-Man vibe and not the lethal protector vibe. A great way to feel like Spider-Man, but you know what isn't? Playing a shallow Metal Gear stealth segment as Mary Jane. Pass. That is not a great way to make me feel like Spider-Man. Also, the depowered Miles parts are much worse than the MJ parts. We all like to talk shit about MJ, but Miles parts in the game are much worse. I know you guys like Miles, and I'm glad he got his own game, but did you notice that we didn't play as Genki or Rio in the Miles game?
Because who the fuck would want to?
Also, just a rant, the Miles missions actually didn't make any narrative or story sense because they're garbage. Mission 1, go find your dead dad. Rough but true. Mission 2, skip the line to not get shot. Dude has zero patience. He literally hacked government property or private armored property just to pour some coffee. Mission 3, get some antibiotics in Gangland. The idea behind this mission's fine, but holy hell, there wasn't any other antibiotics you could have got. And while you guys don't like them, the MJ missions are just more logical. She is either getting info, sneaking for her life, or defusing a literal bioweapon. The Grand Central MJ mission is kind of on its own because it is fantastic. Having Spider-Man do takedowns while you sneak around to defuse the bomb is awesome. But as for the rest of the non-Spider-Man missions, those missions were not fun because the gameplay wasn't fleshed out. And why would it be? It's only 6 missions of something that's never going to be used again. 7.3% of this game is you not playing as Spider-Man. That's something to think about. A side character isn't necessarily a bad idea. Ellie's mission in The Last of Us 1 was fantastic and did add to the story. God of War Ragnarok has you play as Atreus, and while I don't love it, it absolutely propels the story forward. Batman had you take control of Catwoman, but she was a fully fleshed out character with her own moveset. The level of integrity you're going to take with this character is important. If you're not going to commit to a dynamic, don't do it. Some of the gadgets of the game also give me narrative issues. I made a whole video on Spider-Man and drones because they bug the shit out of me, no pun intended. Secondly, how is it possible to have anti-gravity grenades and concussion blast? Even Iron Man doesn't have that shit. How does a guy who can't pay his rent afford that kind of technology? I genuinely feel he doesn't use enough web-based gadgets, and I have tons of ideas. He can use web sheets on the ground that stick guys to the floor, or make web walls, use webs to make tripwires, and go old school to make objects such as shields and armor and web fists. I know web fists are stupid, but we have to admit, web fists are also kind of awesome. On another note, the webs themselves could be adapted from comic books. Acid web, rubber webs, and extra strength webs can all be added for their own effects. Something I find surprising that no other Spider-Man game has ever done this one thing. It doesn't allow you to modify the web fluid. There's an upgrade system to the web shooters, which is fine, but it's not really what I'm talking about. And I'm sorry to bring up this one game again, but it's the last time I have to. Marvel's Avengers. The gear system is universal and in no way makes this unique for Spider-Man as a character, but in that game, the gear system allows you to apply certain effects to your web shooters. You can make them electric webs, gamma webs, ice webs, and pin webs that shrink people, each one with their own particular effect. Some which can help in certain situations more than others. Spider-Man often configures his web fluid in the comics to have different effects. Imagine if he could use flame retardant webs to stop fires, or acid webs to melt debris, something that I think could really upgrade the combat and mechanics of the game, personally. Also, this is something that can make Peter stand out, because Miles is about to go Super Saiyan God Mode 2. I hope I used that joke correctly, I don't really do Dragon Ball. However, some gameplay elements could be added to enhance that story. For example, many Spider-Man games like The Amazing Spider-Man and Spider-Man 2 have an apartment for Peter. You can't do too much aside from engage in some side missions and change your costumes. But what if we could do more? Spider-Man 2 was very interesting as it tried to get you to embody Peter as well as Spider-Man. You could take photos for the Bugle, go on dates with Mary Jane, and
Pizza time.
Let's go!
I love the idea that Peter Parker could go to his apartment, work on upgrades, replay missions, and change his costume, and maybe upload some pics to the Bugle. Please make me use that photo mode. That photo mode is so damn beautiful, just please make me use it. You made me do all the stupid science puzzles, but what I really want to do is take pictures of Spider-Man.
I want Spider-Man!
I'm not saying that you have to do any of that to make it a masterpiece, but you absolutely should do it.
I'm a photographer.
Yes, I can see that.
What this game does instead is has us play as Peter in Otto's Lab and Feast, which are both pretty minimal aside from the story beats, and you don't need them. I was shocked there weren't missions at Feast or the lab for Spider-Man and or Peter. I know the game doesn't have repeatable events, but I found it odd since Peter worked at both those places. Little known fact, you can actually sweep up some dust piles at Feast. Kind of cool, was hoping for actual gameplay, but that's cool. Also, I know cleaning isn't necessarily a gaming mechanic, but it has been done before, and it was super fucking cool. I just wanted to mention Chibi Robo, sorry, my bad. Back to Spider-Man. Overall, I hope the narrative continues to do well, and aside from Ultimate Spider-Man being a direct adaptation of the Ultimate comics from storyline to art style, this game does very well, and I'm excited to see what they do. That being said, I have played a video game where Spider-Man's personal life is affected by the black suit while he is stopping Kraven from killing the giant lizard. I have also played a game where Venom is pursued by hunters through the middle of New York using giant jet planes, and he's playable in the old one. So I hope you got some shit up your sleeves, Insomniac, because I've seen this shit before. Insomniac Spider-Man may be the most successful and graphically pleasing Spider-Man game, but it stands on the shoulders of some very great and underappreciated video games. Even with the great narrative and graphics, it doesn't add up to a masterpiece. This game reminds me a lot of the iPhone. It wasn't the first or the best to do Spider-Man, but it bundled the best parts and made it easy to play. None of the Spider-Man games are perfect, but all of them are very special to me. Even Spider-Man Friend or Foe, because you can kill your little brother in the versus mode by kicking him off a building. But more than that, I'm stoked to see the next chapter of this franchise, and with any luck, the next game will have grown in so many ways after 5 years. Who knows? Maybe it will even be Game of the Year. Thank you for watching the video. It means a lot that you stuck around, and I want to take the time to thank some of the animators I worked with. So here's a list of the animators I worked with. I also worked with my fiance on the music, or rather she worked on the music because I'm musically not talented. And yeah, that's pretty much everyone that's helped me out, and I appreciate you guys for watching the video. I will be streaming the game when it comes out, and then I hope to have a review shortly after then of the game. And I will be making more short-form animated videos as well, so I hope you guys stick around for that. But if you haven't, please subscribe, and if you have, well, you're awesome.